Welcome to Gapology Radio with your hosts, Mark Tinas and Brian Brockhoff. This is your podcast covering tactics for creating winning leadership and sustainable winning organizations. Discover more information detailed in their books, Gapology, Imbar, and their newest release, Speed of Purpose. We can be reached at gapology.org, and our books can be found at amazon.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Gapology Radio. We have a super relevant episode today where Mark and I are going to be discussing the topic of leadership in a Zoom world. Many of us continue to work remotely, and having effective Zoom meetings is really critical to preventing and closing gaps. So let's get this ball rolling and give Mark Tinas a call.
Hey Brian.
Hey Mark, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. You ready for a new podcast this week?
I would love a new podcast.
You know, we should maybe do this on Zoom. What do you think?
Yeah. That's a good idea.
That is. You know, I wonder if people need any tips on Zoom.
You know, Zoom is sort of the world now, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, it's definitely taking over meetings, trainings, just about everything.
You know, we've learned a lot in the pandemic, and Zoom has been there to help us through that. So it's certainly been a blessing, but it's very challenging and it's so different. So leadership styles, leadership models have to change to adapt to it.
Right.
And Gapology is more relevant than ever. And we love that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you look at the root solutions, really a lot of it, I think, could really impact Zoom calls, virtual trainings, virtual meetings. We have so many different elements already built into Gapology. I think if people would apply some of those, it would make all their Zoom calls definitely more productive.
We were ahead of our time.
Yeah, definitely.
We were 10 years before the pandemic.
Right.
No, a lot of it applies, but it's even more relevant today.
Yeah.
So let's jump in.
Okay.
So we're going to call this one Leadership in a Zoom World. So how do leaders adapt to a Zoom world? How do you be effective? How do you help your team be effective? How do you achieve great results in a Zoom world? Because it is so much different. So the first challenge, if you think about it, is reading body language. So Brian, you and I used to visit regularly, right? We'd see each other. So body language, though, was a way you would read someone. You would know if they understood. You would know if they understood the why we were doing something. You would know if they were in, all in, bought in. Or if there was some resistance or if they needed help. And a lot of that's missing in the Zoom world. So the first thing I would say for leaders would be cameras should be on. Cameras should be on. I know that's a no-brainer for many of you. I've talked to friends out there where organizations are saying, it's okay for the camera to be off. I don't agree.
Right. Yeah.
There may be a time when the camera could be off if someone wasn't feeling well or there was an exception to the rule. But in general, I've got to know as a leader if my team is engaged with the message because it affects my delivery.
I think, it goes both ways. So for the participant, seeing your intent, seeing your just facial expressions and those kinds of things, it really requires that camera to be on. And then, like you said, from the flip side of it, it really helps you to be more effective as a presenter if you can see how people are reacting to what you're saying.
Yeah, so I was delivering a message recently on Zoom, to your point, and I could tell that the group was confused. And some were in disagreement, and there was confusion. And that caused me, as the leader of that meeting, to redirect, ask questions, clarify, and everything changed. I was able to redirect, the whole direction of the meeting by visually seeing on Zoom the body language.
Yeah, I think it's easy when you're not in a room and not being watched, to just kind of nod and just go along, just to hurry up and get the call over. But when there's confusion, you can kind of read that in people's faces when you're able to see them.
Yeah. And you can't close gaps that you don't know exist.
Right, yeah.
When you look at Gapology. So one of the things we found in Gapology, for any of you that haven't read it, would be that the great leaders, the winning leaders, the ones that produce the best results, always had their teams aligned with why we were doing something, why it mattered. And in a Zoom world, you got to be very careful because you still have to do that. And it's potentially much more difficult. So you've got to deliver the why. So if you went around the room, figuratively, went around the Zoom, and everyone could explain the why, that's huge. So think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, what if you achieve that? How would that affect results and behavior,
Right. Yeah, a lot of it is nonverbal agreement. So, they can say why. And I think that's important to do over Zoom, is getting people to verbalize and interact and that kind of thing. But again, back to the camera thing, being able to see them nodding and that kind of thing. You can see that when the camera's on, but when it's off, you can't.
Yeah. So facial expressions matter. The other one that's pretty obvious is everyone has to be clear on the expectations. So ensure that everyone that you lead is clear on what you expect. Ensure that the expectations are clear. When the team can repeat back the expectations and fully understands the behaviors that equal that expectation, everything gets easier. And it can get lost in a Zoom world. So an underperformer may not actually be an underperformer. They may actually just be a victim of the Zoom world and of the lack of attention of you as a leader. So assume first that you're the issue and become extremely clear on the expectations and provide the support that's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing that occurred to me while you're saying that is, there's different types of learners. There's people who are more visual. So Zoom potentially could work there. There's people who are more auditory, so they like to have discussions and that kind of thing, so Zoom works there. But it's those kinesthetic, those hands-on learners that they're missing that piece. So that, being in a room together and, participating in the conversation and whiteboarding and doing all those hands-on pieces, I think in the Zoom world you have to look for ways to tap into that so that those people aren't left behind.
Yeah, I talked to a peer the other day who leads a team, and they're doing well, but he has never met the team that he leads.
Oh, wow.
In person.
Yeah.
In person.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine that. So if you think about that scenario, not only would you have to be good at Zoom, but you'd have to be good at scheduling one-on-one time, potentially just on the phone, just to talk.
Right.
Just to talk, answer questions, get to know the person, get to understand what their needs are and how you can help them win. So a lot of additional care needs to be taken to ensure that the relationship is built, because we've never, been in a situation where we've had to build so many relationships that were remote.
Right. Yeah. I would say you'd almost have to double the number of meetings that you have with people. They might be shorter, they might be more targeted, but really building those relationships, it's a lot harder when you can't sit in the same room and look across the table from them. Trying to do it remotely, I think it would take double the effort to be able to do that.
So probably more one-on-ones too.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that I've learned from some of the most successful Zoom leaders out there is that they're sending an agenda and then they're sending notes at the end.
Yep.
So preparatory agenda. Here's the things we're going to discuss tomorrow. Please prepare. That's a big win. Don't forget that one. And then after the fact, here's the things that we agreed to. Here's the actions that must be taken that we talked about. Those two pieces can be forgotten with the assumption that, oh, they got it. Yeah. No, they said they'd get it done. So don't forget that. An agenda matters, especially if it's preparatory. So I've got time to prepare. I know what we're going to discuss. And then here's the notes on what we agreed to. Big deal. A big deal.
Yeah, that's a huge tip. In fact, so I've been conducting virtual trainings over Zoom. And one of the best things that I do is pre-work and post-work. So part of the pre-work is I send handouts ahead of time so people have the material in front of them. And with that is an activity that they have to do that connects them to whatever the topic is. And I don't necessarily get ahead of the subject, but I provide some things to get them thinking about it, just to kind of get the juices flowing around whatever that topic is. So pre-work, post-work, and handouts, I think, is critical, especially if you're using Zoom to train a team.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that would make, again, execution of, whatever it is much more effective.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So one of the other tactics that we talked about in Gapology that can be used here that is very effective is random recaps. So again, picture a group of 12 people on Zoom. And if they knew that this was coming, and you said, okay, let's see, Brian, walk us through your notes so far. We're 15 minutes in here. What are your key takeaways? If that became cultural to where Brian knew that was coming and the peer group knew that was coming, that can be incredibly effective because you then know the level of note-taking, the level of understanding, the level of engagement. You can then pivot off of that and again, make it very soft and warm, Okay, Brian's missing one key item. What is it, team? Oh, yeah, okay. Alicia, walk us through that item. And suddenly the team's learning, they feel embraced. It's not a gotcha, but together our notes are coming together. The whys are being answered. It's quite an art form.
Yeah, I think that's so important to do. And in addition to, pivoting and providing the missing information, I think it helps you as a facilitator to course correct your own presentation techniques and style. So if you keep running into missing things, maybe you need to involve some more visuals, or you need to do some sort of activity or something to get the team where they actually are gaining the knowledge that you want them to learn.
Yeah, leaders think their presentation was clear. That isn't what matters. What matters is what was heard. So if the notes are not great, that's a leader issue. You own it. Great notes are your responsibility. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yep.
That was excellent. So I talked to a leader, again, that was extremely successful with Zoom meetings, company leader by far. And here's what they told me that they required of the team, that they taught the team. They taught the team, first off, that a proper background is key for a Zoom meeting so that the rest of the team can see you clearly. So they taught that. So if you have a bright light behind you, no one can see you, if the sun's shining through the window. So it needs to be rather neutral with the light coming from the front. So they taught that. They actually taught that skill. Secondly, which was huge, lean forward, lean into the camera. Not laid back, leaning in. Totally changes the look of engagement. So if the whole team is learning this and the whole team looks engaged, it causes everybody to step their game up. It's a big deal. So the leaning forward was big. And then have a positive facial expression. A smile as an example. Represent positive body language. And understand that whatever you look like and whatever you speak like on that Zoom as a participant is your brand. You're projecting your brand. What do you want it to be? How to make it great, and to really take some ownership for that. So those were the tips from someone who was having great success against the peer group in Zoom, leading in results, everybody in a Zoom world, but they were winning big. And they had actually taught the team how to win with Zoom. That's a great idea.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's, as soon as this whole thing kind of started, first thing that I did was I'd moved my office into a little bit bigger room. My wife built some shelves, beautiful shelves hanging on the wall behind me with where I put our Gapology books right behind me.
Good job.
I've got a little plant there, and I've got some nice lighting behind me, and then in front I've got a nice light in front that lights me really well, and it's nice smooth lighting. And I went online and I looked at what are some things that are really important, and everything you described is what they were talking about. I love to watch YouTube videos, and they provide tutorials and tips on different things, and all that stuff was exactly what was said. Leaning in, making sure your background's clean, and one other thing is having the camera at eye level or slightly higher even. So oftentimes you'll see the person on the other end with the camera shooting almost straight up their nose. So raise your camera, even if you have to set your laptop on a couple of books.
Well, stack it on a stack of Gapology books.
Yeah, buy a whole bunch and stack it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that all that stuff totally makes a difference. And what you said about the lighting behind you, that happens all the time where they think, well, the room needs to be bright. Well, the brightness needs to come from the front so they can see your face.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Cool.
Leadership in a Zoom world. It's that easy.
Yeah. I want to throw in one other thing just occurred to me about training in a Zoom world. And by the way, when we say a Zoom world, there's lots of different program software out there besides Zoom, but Zoom is the leader certainly. But learn the technology, learn what features that these different programs have. If they have like breakout rooms available, try to use that to increase engagement. If you're doing some sort of little bit longer training where you can do a breakout session, those kinds of things. Learn the technology, I think, is really critical. I taught a couple of classes last week on presentation skills. One was a live presentation on it, and the other one was a Zoom call, and it was for people who were working remotely. And what I learned is that the techniques that you need for a quality live presentation, almost every single thing translates to Zoom. So think about the skills that you need to lead a room, to really, own the room. What does that look like? And translate that to Zoom. Own the Zoom call. Make it yours. There's a lot of tools and types of things out there, but it all comes down to you and how you present.
Run the room.
Yep, run the room. Absolutely.
Run the room. Leadership in a Zoom world. Love it.
Yep. All right, great. Well, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep, we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you next week.
All righty. Bye-bye. All right, that'll do it for this week. Remember, to learn more about any of our books, Gapology, IMBAR, or Speed of Purpose, head on over to our website, gapology.org. Everybody have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you soon.
This has been a Gapology production. Visit us at gapology.org.